The night skies over Tel Aviv were lit up like daylight. Drones buzzed overhead. Missiles streaked through the atmosphere, and the unmistakable sound of conflict echoed across the region. But this wasn't just another flare-up in the Middle East. According to Tehran, this was the beginning of the most devastating assault they've ever launched against Israel, a declaration not of war, but of vengeance. In this episode, we dive deep into the rapidly escalating conflict between Iran and Israel, a confrontation that has now pulled the United States to the brink of military intervention. What's driving this unprecedented level of aggression? And more importantly, are we witnessing the prelude to a full-scale regional war?
Over the past 48 hours, Iran unleashed a coordinated wave of drones and hypersonic missiles targeting major Israeli cities. The attacks came without warning, striking civilian infrastructure, power stations, and even causing dozens of casualties. Tehran framed the operation as retaliation, a bold response to Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear and military facilities, including the high-profile Natanz site. But this wasn't just about revenge. It was a carefully orchestrated move designed to overwhelm Israel's advanced missile defense systems. Iranian drones served as decoys, drawing fire before the hypersonic payloads were launched, a tactic meant to exploit the narrow time window between detection and impact. The damage was immediate. Key infrastructure went offline, and over 20 dozen lives were lost in the first major strike alone. In response, Israeli government confirmed nearly 600 injured and activated emergency protocols across several cities. Airstrikes on Tehran followed swiftly. Among the Israeli targets, Iranian F-14 fighters, strategic communication hubs, and even the state-run television broadcasting center, which was accused of serving as a disguised military command node. Smoke blackened the skies over Tehran, prompting Iranian officials to accuse Israel of committing war crimes and urging the United Nations to act. Meanwhile, the U.S. is no longer sitting on the sidelines. The USS Nimitz carrier strike group is en route to the Middle East, diverted from the Pacific under direct orders from the Pentagon. Reports from Israeli media claimed President Donald Trump was poised to sign an executive order formally authorizing U.S. involvement. While the White House has denied any concrete plans for an offensive, the message from Washington has been mixed at best. On June 16th, President Trump issued an ominous statement via social media. Iran should have signed the deal. They won't get nuclear weapons. Everyone should evacuate Tehran immediately. No further explanation was provided, but the timing, in the wake of Israeli retaliation and increasing Iranian losses, raised serious concerns about a potential American-led strike on Tehran. Adding fuel to the fire, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Corps launched a ninth wave of strikes against Israel, again using drones and hypersonic missiles in combination. This time, it appeared more than symbolic. Tehran was making it clear that it would continue hitting back until its national pride and deterrence posture were restored. At the heart of the crisis is Iran's nuclear program. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed that over 15,000 centrifuges at Natanz may have been destroyed in the initial Israeli airstrike, crippling Iran's enrichment capacity. Yet the Fordow facility, buried deep within a mountain, remains intact and highly contested. Israel, for its part, is pressing the U.S. to escalate. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly asked the Pentagon to deploy GBU-57 bunker buster bombs, the only munitions capable of reaching and destroying Fordow, to Israel's forces. But the U.S. remains hesitant. President Trump has reiterated his belief in a diplomatic solution, even as he orders more troops into the region and holds emergency meetings with Vice President J.D. Vance and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Behind the scenes, negotiations had quietly resumed earlier this year. 5 rounds of talks between U.S. and Iranian officials took place in Oman and Italy. But those collapsed after Israel's June 13th strikes killed several key Iranian scientists and military commanders. Iran immediately withdrew from the 6th round, declaring that diplomacy was no longer a viable option. Now we're left in a gray zone, where diplomacy is fading and military action is escalating. Israel has already begun civilian evacuations in parts of Tehran, a strategy reminiscent of their October 2023 campaign in Gaza. And Iranian commanders have vowed to continue fighting until Israel is brought to its knees. The stakes are no longer limited to just Iran and Israel. Russia is watching, with speculation about quiet support for Iran through technical and cyber means. China, meanwhile, has advised its citizens to leave Israel via Jordan, a move rarely made unless war appears imminent. The G7 nations issued a joint statement supporting Israel's right to self-defense, but also urged both sides to de-escalate. Still, many believe those diplomatic pleas are too little, too late. President Macron hinted that Washington had reached out to Iran for renewed talks, but Trump quickly denied any such outreach, claiming instead that something bigger was coming. What exactly that means remains unclear, but uncertainty is now the defining characteristic of U.S. strategy in the region. And here lies the critical question. If Iran follows through on its warning of a historic, devastating strike, what will the U.S. do? History shows that the U.S. has consistently backed Israel militarily, politically, and diplomatically. But with Trump's unpredictable diplomacy, the usual rules may no longer apply. This moment may represent the point of no return. Trump's early departure from the G7 summit, coupled with sudden troop mobilizations and back-channel talks, suggest that the U.S. is at a strategic crossroads. Peace, for now, is a slim hope resting on uncertain ground. And as both nations brace for the next strike, we can't forget the human cost. In Tel Aviv, families huddle in shelters. In Tehran, parents whisper bedtime prayers under darkened skies. Beneath the missiles and political bravado, there's a deeper struggle, not just for dominance, but for survival, for dignity, for peace. So the world waits, holding its breath, as dusk falls once more over the Middle East, red not of the light of the setting sun, but of the flare of missiles launched in anger.
You've been listening to Red Lines and Retaliation, a deep dive into the Iran-Israel crisis. Subscribe for more geopolitical analysis, military briefings, and strategic insights from around the world. And remember, behind every missile, every maneuver, are real people with everything to lose. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, stay prepared.